You step outside for a breath of air and there they are, watering the same patch of grass they already watered twice today. You pull into your driveway at an odd hour and somehow they're standing by the mailbox again. At first it feels like a coincidence, then it feels like presence, and finally it starts to feel like surveillance. This isn't about paranoia, it's about patterns. When someone's curiosity begins to track your movements, observe your habits, and gather details you never meant to share, you're not just dealing with a nosy neighbor. You're dealing with someone who has crossed a boundary you didn't agree to. The worst part? Most people ignore the early signs, brushing them off in the name of politeness or fear of overreacting. But your instincts don't lie. They whisper warnings long before your mind catches up. In today's video, we're going to break down 7 subtle but serious signs that your neighbor isn't just being friendly, they're monitoring you. And once you see the signs, you won't be able to unsee them. So stay with me until the end, because your peace of mind might depend on recognizing what's quietly happening right outside your door. If you've ever felt watched but couldn't explain why, you're not alone, and you're not crazy. Drop a comment below and share your experience, because someone else might need to hear it. And if protecting your peace matters to you, consider subscribing. This channel exists to keep your instincts sharp and your mind free. 1. They appear every time you leave your house. It always starts the same way, small, seemingly innocent moments that don't register as threats. You open your front door to grab the mail, and there they are. You leave for work a bit early, and somehow they're already in the yard with a rake, despite never raking before. At first, it's almost humorous. A neighbor who always seems to be outside at just the right moment, like a background actor timed to your movements. But when it becomes a pattern, morning, evening, weekdays, weekends, the laughter fades and something deeper begins to stir. Instinct. One of my close friends, Jack, used to joke that his neighbor must have had a motion sensor tied to his front door. Every time Jack left his house, even at odd hours, that same neighbor would appear, standing by the trash can, pretending to wash a perfectly clean car or just stretching in the driveway. It wasn't what the man was doing that unsettled him, it was when he was doing it. It felt synchronized, too synchronized to dismiss. And eventually, Jack stopped finding it funny and started keeping notes. There's a name for this behavior in psychological terms: hypervigilant observation. It's when someone becomes so attuned to your habits that they can anticipate your next step before you take it. This isn't a casual neighborly coincidence. It's a quiet form of control. And the most dangerous thing about it is how subtle it is. There are no obvious threats, no confrontations, just repeated presence, timed with your every movement, designed to be harmless until it isn't. From a Stoic lens, the way forward is not panic, it's perception. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that disturbance doesn't come from events themselves, but from our interpretation of them. Feeling discomfort is not weakness, it's awareness. If your instincts are sounding alarms, you don't owe anyone an explanation for listening. The mind evolved to detect subtle threats long before modern technology entered the picture. When something inside you says, "This isn't right," that voice deserves your attention, not your dismissal. This kind of quiet stalking behavior often goes unchallenged because it isn't dramatic. It's passive. But passivity doesn't mean harmless. A neighbor who constantly appears at the exact moment you leave home is observing a routine, and routines, once predictable, can be exploited. If they know when you're gone, they know when you're alone. If they know your patterns, they have leverage. What begins as presence becomes surveillance. What feels like curiosity becomes intrusion. To respond stoically means to neither overreact nor ignore. It means to gather clarity. Start by simply observing the observer. Document without emotion. Keep a record of dates, times, and appearances. Disrupt the rhythm. Leave at different hours, change your route, pause at the door before stepping out. You're not playing games, you're reclaiming your unpredictability. Because unpredictability is protection. Control over your external world is limited, but control over how you act within it is yours alone. In truth, safety isn't just about locks and cameras, it's about awareness. And when someone tries to insert themselves quietly into your daily rhythm, it's your responsibility to break the rhythm before they learn to dance to it. The power of observation can protect you or be used against you. The difference lies in who holds the awareness and who acts on it. 2. They ask innocent questions to extract personal details. There's a particular kind of discomfort that arises when someone knows something about you that you never remember sharing. It often shows up in the form of polite conversation, casual, well-timed questions that seem friendly on the surface, but leave you wondering how exactly they knew what they knew. A neighbor leaning over the fence might say, "So, you're still working those late shifts? Or is your sister still in Phoenix?" Comments that sound benign until you remember you've never spoken those words aloud in their presence. That's when small talk turns into a quiet warning. My sister once had a neighbor who was the picture of warmth. An older woman with a kind face, she always had something nice to say. But over time, the charm began to fray. One day, she casually asked if my sister had finished paperwork for her new car lease, something she had only mentioned in a private phone call with our mother. The neighbor delivered it like a friendly observation, not realizing or perhaps knowing too well that she'd just crossed an invisible line. My sister laughed it off, but the unease stayed with her. That moment, so subtle and coated in kindness, changed everything. When a neighbor begins referencing details of your life that you never offered, especially through what seem like harmless questions, it's no longer conversation, it's information gathering. This behavior is dangerous not because of the tone it uses, but because of the access it assumes. Politeness becomes a disguise for intrusion. And most people, raised to be cordial and accommodating, ignore the gut-level discomfort these exchanges bring. But your nervous system notices. Your instincts tighten for a reason. This is one of the most common forms of quiet manipulation. By hiding their curiosity behind a mask of neighborly friendliness, they disarm you. You feel pressured to smile, to respond, to not seem rude. And just like that, you hand over more information than you meant to. What feels like a conversation is often a form of subtle surveillance, an attempt to fill in the blanks of your schedule, your relationships, your vulnerabilities. It's no longer about knowing you, it's about knowing how to position themselves around you. Stoic wisdom reminds us to choose silence as a shield. Epictetus taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, to listen more and speak less. That principle applies here with precision. The person asking too many innocent questions may not be looking to connect. They may be watching for patterns, trying to decode your life from the outside in. This is how quiet stalking behavior often starts, not with cameras, not with trespassing, but with words, subtle, disguised, persistent. So how do you respond without becoming reactive or paranoid? You don't need confrontation, you need clarity. First, take a mental inventory. What are they asking? How often? Do their questions show knowledge they shouldn't have? Start giving vague answers or shifting the subject. Drop fictional details if necessary, something unimportant, and see if it comes back to you later through their words. If it does, you'll have your answer. You'll know they're not just listening, they're tracking. Silence isn't weakness. In this context, it is armor. It is the boundary between your peace and someone else's silent need to know more than they should. You don't owe full explanations to anyone who hasn't earned trust. You don't need to satisfy their curiosity just because they asked with a smile. Your personal space extends beyond your yard. It includes your thoughts, your plans, your private world. When that world is being quietly poked and prodded, it's your right and your responsibility to protect it. Not through fear, not through hostility, but with calm restraint and disciplined distance. That is the Stoic way. That is how you defend your peace without ever raising your voice. 3. Their technology is focused on you. Technology was meant to make us feel safer. Cameras, sensors, smart doorbells. They were built to protect, not to invade. But like any tool, it depends on who's holding it. When your neighbor installs a security camera that doesn't monitor their own front door, but instead points directly into your living room window, that's not protection. It's surveillance. And when your Wi-Fi suddenly slows down at odd hours, or strange devices appear in your network list only when you're home, that's not a coincidence. It's an intrusion dressed up as normalcy. A friend of mine once confided in me after weeks of restless sleep. She said she felt watched, even inside her home. She hadn't seen anyone peering in, but she couldn't shake the feeling. I offered to walk her property with her. We looked at the angle of every camera, every light. When we mapped it all out, one neighbor's device stood out. Angled directly at her living room, with a clear view through the window she always forgot to close the blinds on. She didn't need a tech degree to understand what was happening. She just needed to trust what her gut had been whispering for weeks. Someone was using technology not to guard their own world, but to monitor hers. Today, surveillance doesn't require wiretaps or binoculars. A single camera, cheap and easy to install, can record hours of footage. A smart device left accidentally on record. A router with the wrong settings. These quiet stalking tactics don't knock on your door. They slip in through digital cracks you never noticed. And the impact isn't just technical, it's deeply emotional. You stop opening your blinds. You hesitate before dancing in your kitchen or making a phone call by the window. You begin to edit yourself for an audience you didn't invite. This is how surveillance rewires you. It turns your home, the place that should offer total emotional safety, into something performative. You begin to think about angles, about visibility, about silence. You start living around the fear, not through it. And that is a subtle form of psychological captivity. The walls remain, the roof still protects you from the rain, but inside you are no longer fully free. A Stoic would not tell you to ignore this feeling. Quite the opposite. They would ask you to examine it without flinching, to verify the threat without dramatizing it. They would remind you that the violation of your privacy may be outside your control, but how you respond is not. That's the key. You don't panic. You don't confront recklessly. You observe, test, document, and adapt. Look carefully at the devices around you. Study your network logs. Place a mirror where the lens is aimed and ask yourself, if the roles were reversed, would this still feel okay? This isn't about becoming paranoid. It's about becoming precise. A wise person doesn't hide from the world. They reinforce the boundary between what belongs to them and what doesn't. If a neighbor's technology feels invasive, it probably is. And if their lens is pointed where it doesn't belong, then you have a right not to retaliate, but to respond with reason, with preparation, and with strength. Because your home is more than walls and locks. It's your emotional ground. It's where you laugh freely, cry in silence, and rebuild after a long day. When someone's device starts mapping your private world, it's not just hardware, it's a message. I'm watching. And that's when you send a message back, not with noise, but with action. Set up your own protection. Adjust your digital habits. Guard your privacy like it matters, because it does. In a world where technology sees everything, the true power lies in knowing exactly what to protect and refusing to surrender your peace to silent eyes. 4. They know private things you never told them. There's a moment that catches you off guard, not because something dramatic happens, but because something feels off. A neighbor compliments your new shoes before you've even worn them outside. They ask how your weekend trip went, though you only mentioned it during a private call. Or worse, they refer to your adjusted work schedule that you never once discussed publicly. In that instant, your brain tries to catch up with the feeling. You search for an explanation. Did I tell them? Did someone else? Did I post it online? But when none of those add up, what you're left with is discomfort and the realization that someone has access to parts of your life that were never meant to be shared. This form of subtle intrusion is what makes it so unsettling. The person doesn't break in, doesn't confront, doesn't make demands. Instead, they drop casual lines that reveal a disturbing truth. They've been listening, watching, or somehow extracting your private life without consent. And because their tone is kind and their words gentle, you're left questioning yourself before questioning them. That confusion is exactly what makes this behavior so dangerous. It disarms you emotionally while violating your boundaries silently. A listener of this channel once shared that her neighbor congratulated her on a pregnancy she hadn't announced yet, information only her mother knew, and that had been shared behind closed doors. Another viewer told us about a neighbor who commented on a late-night delivery, even though the package never left the porch and hadn't been unboxed. These are not examples of friendliness. They're examples of psychological trespassing, where someone believes that proximity entitles them to knowledge they were never invited to have. When someone knows private things you never told them, it is a red flag wrapped in politeness. It's also a power move. Knowledge, especially when unearned, becomes a tool of quiet control. They know something about you that you didn't give them. That imbalance shifts the dynamic. They feel superior, in the know. You feel exposed, unsure of what else they might know or how they found out. And this is how emotional effects of being watched begin to take root, not through overt threats, but through small disruptions to your sense of safety and control. The Stoics would never suggest suppressing these instincts or pretending they don't matter. Instead, they'd urge you to examine the situation without panic and respond with discipline and clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that external things cannot touch the soul unless we let them. So the key here is to prevent someone else's curiosity from becoming your burden. Begin by tightening the circle of your disclosures. Avoid discussing sensitive matters within earshot of windows or outdoor spaces. Watch your digital footprint, your location tags, your routine posts, your smart device activity. These are quiet access points that people with subtle surveillance tactics may use to fill in the gaps of your life. You don't need to confront to regain control. You need to observe and adapt. Say less. Listen more. Place intentional gaps between what others see and what you live. When someone reveals too much knowledge, test the waters. Share a harmless false detail in passing and wait. If it returns to you, you've identified your leak. If it doesn't, you've confirmed your boundaries hold. Ultimately, privacy is not about secrecy. It's about choice. You decide what parts of your life remain yours. When someone disregards that, whether with cameras or questions, you have every right, not to lash out, but to reinforce the walls that define your mental and emotional sanctuary. Because respect isn't just about how someone treats you in public, it's about what they do with what they shouldn't know in private. And if your neighbor consistently crosses that invisible line, it's not just nosiness anymore, it's a quiet form of control that demands a calm, deliberate response. 5. There's physical evidence around your property. Sometimes what reveals the truth isn't what someone says or how often they appear. It's what changes quietly in your physical space when you're not looking. You notice your welcome mat looks a little too perfectly aligned, even though you always leave it slightly askew. A potted plant you positioned toward the sunlight now faces the street. Your mailbox door, normally tight, is ajar on a day with no deliveries. At first, you question yourself. Maybe you bumped the mat. Maybe the wind did it. Maybe the delivery driver touched the pot. But then it keeps happening. Small, subtle shifts in your home environment that only you would notice. And suddenly, it no longer feels accidental. It feels targeted. My cousin once told me about a time he came home from a long weekend trip and instantly felt like something was off. He couldn't point to anything dramatic. The locks were still sealed, the windows closed. But the way the sunlight hit his doormat, it was too aligned, too deliberate. At first, he brushed it off, but over the next week, more small details emerged. A planter that had never moved was facing the sidewalk. Packages were placed in odd locations. No items stolen, no property damaged, just enough interference to say, someone's been here. Someone wants you to know they've been here. This form of quiet boundary testing is a classic tactic in subtle surveillance behavior. It doesn't scream for attention, it whispers discomfort. Its goal isn't to break in, it's to break confidence. By disturbing just enough to be noticed, but never enough to justify alarm, the person watching is measuring your response. Will you shrug it off? Will you panic? Will you say nothing and keep wondering? This uncertainty becomes their tool. From a Stoic lens, these moments are not cause for emotional reaction. They are cues for rational response. Epictetus taught that we must separate what is within our control from what is not, and act only where our will has power. You cannot control what someone else does when you're away, but you can control how you observe, prepare, and protect. That begins with trusting your sense of familiarity. You know your space better than anyone. When something feels out of place, it probably is. This is not about being paranoid. It's about being precise. Subtle surveillance tactics often begin with physical touchpoints. A shifted curtain, a door left unlocked, a trash bin slightly moved. These signs aren't about damage. They're about presence. A presence that is neither invited nor acknowledged. And if ignored, these tiny tests often escalate. What starts with repositioning your doormat may evolve into entering your backyard under the excuse of checking on something. What's casual to them becomes consuming to you. So what do? You build quiet, strategic awareness. Place a strip of clear tape on your doorframe. Slip a piece of folded paper between the door and the jamb. Use tiny markers on your window locks. These small indicators are not signs of fear. They are signs of ownership. You're not waiting for someone else to confirm that your space is being disturbed. You're confirming it for yourself. And once you do, respond without noise. Take photos. Keep a log. Date, time, weather, detail. This isn't drama. It's documentation. You're not acting out of emotion. You're building evidence. And that gives you power, not over them, but over your next move. Your home is not just walls and objects. It's the center of your emotional grounding. It's the only place where you should never second-guess what's been touched, who's been near, or whether you're still in control. When someone invades with calculated subtlety, your job isn't to react loudly. Your job is to act wisely. Because true protection begins not with force, but with clarity, presence, and the quiet refusal to let anyone redraw the borders of your peace without your consent. 6. They try to control how you see other neighbors. At first, it seems like they're just looking out for you, casually pointing out that someone down the street keeps their blinds closed too often, or that another neighbor had a strange visitor last week. These conversations arrive dressed as concern, wrapped in friendly tones, but over time, the pattern reveals itself. The neighbor who speaks in whispers always has something to say about someone else, and it's never positive. You begin to notice that each warning, each story, each planted suspicion carries the same underlying message. You can't trust them, but you can trust me. This is not social awareness. This is control. I once lived in a neighborhood where one woman took it upon herself to be the unofficial watchtower of the entire block. She would greet new residents with warmth and then proceed to feed them a slow drip of distrust. Be careful with that man next door. He drinks too much. The couple across the street is always fighting. Police came once. At first, it felt like insider advice. But as time passed, I noticed a chilling consistency. Every person on the street had been labeled as a problem, except her. The stories were unverified, impossible to trace, yet potent enough to make me hesitate before waving to someone I hadn't even spoken to yet. This is how psychological isolation begins. Not with a locked door, but with a shift in perception. By seeding quiet suspicion, this type of neighbor positions themselves as your filter, the one who explains the world around you and who, by doing so, narrows it. Over time, you start trusting your own instincts less and depending on their commentary more. You pull back from conversations, wave less, and engage less. Your community doesn't change, but your relationship with it does, and that's the point. What appears to be concern is often manipulation. It's a classic tactic in quiet control. Isolate the target by undermining their trust in others, then step into the vacuum as the sole trusted source. It's strategic, it's subtle, and it works. Especially on those of us who are naturally cautious, who believe we're just being careful. But in trying to protect ourselves, we end up cutting ourselves off from the very relationships that could offer balance, perspective, and actual support. A Stoic doesn't mistake suspicion for wisdom. Seneca once said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." That means not just surrounding yourself with kind people, but also refusing to let someone else shape your entire view of the world. You are responsible for your perceptions. You choose whether to believe what you're told or to test it yourself. When someone repeatedly tells you whom not to trust, ask yourself, what do they gain if I do? And what do they fear if I don't? There's nothing wrong with being informed. But when one voice dominates your understanding of your environment, you're no longer observing, you're being guided. You've handed over your lens to someone else. And the more you let them color your view, the more invisible their manipulation becomes. You must reclaim your perspective. Stop taking whispered warnings at face value. Speak for yourself. Observe your neighbors with your own eyes. Give people the chance to be human, not just characters in someone else's gossip script. If you sense patterns of division, step back and see who's at the center of them. Often, the one warning you about everyone else is the only one you truly need to watch. Ultimately, control through suggestion is still control. And when that suggestion shapes your relationships, it shapes your reality. A peaceful life is not built through fear of others. It's built through honest, personal observation. Guard your perceptions as fiercely as you would your front door, because whoever shapes the way you see the world holds quiet power over your peace. And that's a power you never want to give away lightly. 7. Their curiosity has turned into obsession. There's a thin line between curiosity and obsession, and the most dangerous part is how quietly that line gets crossed. At first, they seem engaged, interested, even charming. A neighbor who waves every time you step outside, asks how your day went, remembers little details you barely mentioned. But slowly, it stops feeling like friendliness and starts feeling like surveillance with a smile. When someone begins showing up more often than feels reasonable, knowing things you've only said behind closed doors, and inserting themselves into your life without invitation, their curiosity is no longer passive. It's possessive. A friend of mine, Karen, once shared something that still gives me pause. After a private phone call in her bedroom with the door closed, planning a weekend getaway with her sister, she found a note tucked under her doormat the next morning. "Have a great trip." She hadn't posted it online. She hadn't spoken to anyone else. And yet, somehow, someone knew. It would have been easy to laugh it off. Coincidence, intuition, harmless neighborly support. But it didn't stop there. The same neighbor later entered her backyard while she was away, claiming to check the gutters for leaves. There were no leaves, and there was no permission. This is how quiet obsession operates. It doesn't start with confrontation. It builds with presence. It escalates through false justification. It hides behind helpfulness until it no longer needs a mask. The emotional effects of being watched intensify, not because of what's said, but because of what's implied. That they believe your life is partially theirs to monitor, to comment on, to access whenever they see fit. And once they begin behaving as if they belong in your space, physically or emotionally, the threat becomes clear. Not because they've harmed you yet, but because they've erased the boundary that says they shouldn't. From a Stoic standpoint, this is not a situation that calls for panic, but it does demand decisive clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that external events hold no power over us unless we allow them to. But the danger of obsession isn't in the external behavior alone. It's in the internal shift it causes when we begin to second-guess our own responses. You start thinking maybe you're overreacting. You give the benefit of the doubt one too many times. You delay action because confrontation feels heavy. And in that hesitation, the person watching gains momentum. But Stoicism teaches us that strength isn't loud, it's calculated. It's built in the silence between fear and action, in the choice to prepare rather than react. That means documenting what you notice, keeping a detailed record, not to dwell on the discomfort, but to arm yourself with clarity. If needed, it means taking the next legal step. Cease and desist notices, restraining orders, quiet conversations with local authorities before the line gets crossed even further. You don't win against obsession by becoming emotional. You win by becoming untouchable, mentally fortified, legally prepared, socially supported. That's why you must connect with people you trust. Because obsession thrives in isolation, and the moment you stop talking about it is the moment it grows in the dark. If someone is fixated on you, their presence will always feel louder than their words. But your power lies not in stopping their actions. You may not be able to. It lies in defending the one thing no one has a right to violate: your mind, your peace, your inner command center. When you sense obsession, don't apologize for naming it. Don't wait for it to turn toxic. Trust that your awareness is enough of a warning. Because once someone stops respecting your space, you owe them no explanation, only distance, documentation, and disciplined action. That is Stoic protection at its highest form. And that is how you take back control from anyone who mistakes your silence for permission. The truth is, being watched doesn't always look like a camera or sound like footsteps. Sometimes it shows up in repeated appearances, in questions that go too far, or in neighbors who cross emotional and physical lines without ever raising their voice. If even one of these signs felt familiar to you, it's time to pause and listen, not to fear, but to instinct. You don't need to react with anger, but you do need to act with clarity. Emotional detachment isn't cold, it's necessary. And the sooner you set boundaries, the stronger your inner peace becomes. Whether it's subtle surveillance tactics, neighbors spying on you without saying a word, or manipulative behavior hiding behind polite smiles, the most powerful response is silent, calm, and calculated. Control your space, protect your privacy, and above all, reclaim your mental clarity before someone else clouds it. If this video helped you recognize any patterns in your own life, share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be the light someone else is waiting for. And if you value content that helps you stay grounded, informed, and in control, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Your peace deserves to be guarded every single day.